Yeah.
Are you guys? Are you good? You're good. We're rolling. Let's start with cool. Nice to see you. Welcome.
Hello.
How are
Hello.
things? How are you?
Things are good.
Nice to see you. How are
Good to
you?
see you.
What's going on?
We're here, Prophets of Rage.
This is
in
amazing.
Topanga Canyon.
So I heard the name of the band and went perfect name for the band, and it was apparently an easy choice to call it Prophets of Rage, right?
Yeah, I mean the combination. Prophets of Rage is the name of a Public Enemy song. It's got the word rage in it, and there was enough weed in the room to sort of represent Cypress Hill at the same time. So that was the perfect union of the three bands.
What I like about it, and you guys have your own perspective on it, was I heard it and went, okay, so this isn't like these are all guys who not only knew each other, but worked with each other.
Sure.
I mean, I remember when you came on the radio station, I interviewed you in, like, I don't know, 1997, you were talking about how a lot of bands forget who helps them in the beginning.
Right.
Rage didn't, because you went out with Rage right at the very beginning, right? And this was a friendship. How in touch was everybody before you decided to do this?
Through the years, we would at various festival shows,
projects. Tom helped me with.
I'd produce a track here or play a guitar on a song there, and and it was always an honor to, PE took us out, was the first band to ever take Rage Against the Machine out on tour. I think we returned the favor sometime later in New York City, and it's not just a matter of a friendship, but like we're huge fans, and Cypress Hill and Public Enemy were the two principal hip-hop acts that were an influence on Rage Against the Machine. So when it came time to talk about, confronting the mountain of bullshit in 2016, 2017, we wanted to bring out the big guns, and there's no bigger gun than the hard rhymer.
The full that's it right there.
Yeah.
And so you're sitting at home thinking the same thing? I want to be a part of this?
Well, initially, anything that I've decided to do in the music business, I never gave an impulsive decision to. But this man is not only is he a beacon, he has the art of persuasion. And he brought it across to me. I actually was doing a tour with Public Enemy, 105th tour in our 29th year. And my hands were full, but he had a conversation with my wife, and they had some academic conversation. And she just basically said, this is something that you better do. So that was that.
Yeah, so we thank her. We thank her very much for that.
I imagine, too, there's like, you don't want to be the lead singer of Rage Against the Machine, right? Which is probably have to be a consideration.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, you're looking at you guys in the band, and you're like, how do we make sure this isn't bad?
Exactly. And it was very key. Even though the first time around we did play Rage songs and Rageify, Cypress Hill and Public Enemy songs, and we still do, and we're proud of those legacies, and it's a huge part of the musical firepower that we have. But we wanted this to be a band for now. Like the emergency is now, and this band has to be for now. That's why, we wanted a chemistry that was built for 2017 and a record that was made for 2017.
An energy you guys all felt.
It wasn't automatic. The chemistry has to be developed. The feeling and the intent is there, but the chemistry is something that had to get worked, and this is something that Tom found out very early in trying to make the blueprint for this. Okay, it looks fantastic on paper. To me, no one could fill actually the shoes of doing a Rage song the way Zach De La Rocha did it. But this is not a parody band. This is not a karaoke. These guys actually, have birthed these records, and so myself. This became a reality with once Be Real became part of the final, the final link, and then going at these songs, we had to figure out how do we make this live stronger than it looks on paper, and then how do we, let people know that we're dead serious about this. And Tom said, hey, this situation out here, this scenario in this world right now won't fix itself. You got to get up and make it happen, and that's something we all nodded our heads to.
I mean, watching this develop, the campaign essentially is the culmination of a mood and a tone that's been happening around the world, specifically in the Western world, for a long time. This isn't news. Yeah. Did you feel like we need to say something? We had things to say. We were looking for a vehicle.
It wasn't enough to tweet about. This cannot be a hashtag revolution. And we had a considerable amount of musical muscle to flex, and rather than just sort of posting snarky photos about the election cycle or about sort of the Trump-Pence regime, it's like we need to do something about it, and we need to inject our voice, our megaphone, into the cacophony of sort of political banter, and and that's all kind of highfalutin talk about politics, but we love being a rock and roll band together. Like, it's exciting. It's when we get out on those stages, whether we're playing in front of a hip hop crowd or a metal crowd or at a festival show or at our own show, like, we go out there to destroy the place, and that is a feat. There's nothing like that feeling. You're like playing with Tim and Brad, like, that creates a very the Rage Against the Machine Audio Slave backbone is it's just something to be in a room with, as a fan, just as a fan of rock and roll music. There's something, and then with these guys as two of the greatest stage MCs of all time, and with DJ Lord's turntablism, it's a really exciting. Like, we go out there with the same kind of chip we had on our shoulder in the earliest days of Rage Against the Machine, and that's an exciting feeling.
Had that ever waned, that chip?
It's different sometimes. Like, if you go out there and you're like, we would, whether it was with Rage and with Audio Slave, after a while you go out there and you know that you can line up X number of hits in a row, and unless everybody falls off the stage, it's gonna be all right. A wind blew them all off the stage, and it was a bad show. Yeah. Other than that, it's a guaranteed win. With this, people are skeptical. They have every right to be skeptical. Like, what is that? What does that mean? And audiences are, have they moved on? What do 19-year-olds think about this who maybe have never seen a show of any of the bands? So I love it. I mean, I love being in the stalking position. We went out there we played in front of 2.5 million people in the last year and a half on 3 continents. We went to these European metal festivals, and these, some nights it's Green Day headlining, sometimes it's Justin Bieber headlining, sometimes it's Metallica headlining, and we leveled that shit. And it was so exciting to just feel the power of this band. That's why we knew we had to make a record now. We had to capture that chemistry, and we had to, sort of continue the crusade.
The crusade is the key here, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just a disservice merely calling us an American band. When you travel around the world for 30 years and you get stories and you're integrated with people and them looking not only at their nation's situation in the world, but also all eyes are pointed and ears and minds are pointed at what's going right here in the United States of America. Notice I didn't say America. Yeah. But then somebody has to answer to that. And we as a group say, look, we can take a world point of view as well as being from here and make some concise statements, but still make some great music. I mean, this does not happen without the greatness of the music. And the difference between Public Enemy, Rage Against the Machine, and also Cypress Hill is that this situation is really music-led. Yeah. The power of the music is a vocal in itself.
And your iconic vocals and Be Real's iconic vocals together with the iconic sound, it's just one of those things when you hear it, you have legacy. That actually matters, I think, because you're not young bucks who decided to say we don't like the system.
Mm-hmm. You can't fax it in like they used to say back in the day. You got to really prove it.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to prove your song, and if you're able to prove your song into being a recording, you got to prove that recording. And if you don't prove that recording with belief and bleed the intent, then you're going to be kind of obscured and looked over. And performance is very key, especially in the time where a lot of artists and people in the music industry have realized that the live performance it's the main thing that we got. It's back to that, and it should have always been to that. No tricks, no gimmicks. So if you're going to actually know that that's going to be a thing, fill it with something that means something. That's what we do.
Without being cynical, you still, how the fuck did this happen? Like, we know how it happened. There's been a roadmap to Donald Trump. It's not news. But how did it actually happen to this? Like, how did we get here?
I mean, I think that there's what has been laid bare is the lie that, at least in the United States of America, that it is, that it's one united country that all, high fives at the Super Bowl. Yeah. There are different Americas, and they've got different agendas, and there's this kind of there's this false political structure of the two parties that sort of masks that, where both those parties suck at the same corporate teat, and then you know, you have this maverick in Donald Trump who uses the old divide and rule tools of racism. And the problem isn't your economy. The problem isn't your economic system. The problem is Mexicans, and the problem is Muslims, and that's very attractive to people. I come from Trump country, small Illinois town.
The north. You come
from the north, yeah, where there's Confederate flags on the back of pickup trucks, and there's Trump signs in almost every yard. Because these are not bad people. These are people I grew up with. They've been dicked over by both parties. Their kids have died for nothing in Afghanistan and Iraq. You can either work at Walmart, you go in the army, or you sell meth. Or you go to a stripper pole. Like those are the options that are left. The neighborhood, the little Mayberry-like neighborhood that I grew up on, 4 of the houses have gone back to nature. There's cats and trees and raccoons living in them. And so when someone comes along and goes, yeah, the system's messed up, you should vote for me, and it's a TV personality and a brand. I understand people into that. Where we founded this band was to provide an alternate explanation for what went wrong and what to do about it.
You go back to the beginning and you talk about how, on your records, one side of the street's a church, the other side a liquor store, both of them keeping us poor. This is the exact same thing that's been happening.
It became viral.
Yeah.
It's a systemic social virus that has duped many people in this country and has worked in that same fashion across the world. And we answered to that earlier. I mean, look, I'm old enough. We're old enough to know that to be familiar with Donald Trump. Is the problem Donald Trump? No. I mean, look, the dude could be whatever he wants to be. We just don't want him to be president. And since he's in that position, he's turned into be a mirror for a lot of those racial frustrations that people have. And this is a problem. So we as musicians and artists can definitely meet that head on and attack that head on or illuminate what's going on.
Is it a responsibility?
I think so, for us. Yeah. I think artists could be artists to, be whatever they want to be. But I'm a type of person, if I look at an artist and they might be 15 years old, I'm like, yeah, do what you know. But also spit what you believe. If you don't believe it, the gimmicks and making up fairy tales is a category, but everybody can't fit into that. So try to at least, have your art go to your core. And then it will lead its own trail from there.
That's always been the truth for both of you in your art. Is it exhausting?
No, man. I mean, to me, it's the mission. I have little choice in it. And then for me, it really hasn't been a choice. It's kind of like it's in the DNA. And these are particularly dangerous times, and they deserve dangerous songs. And people need to stand up in whatever their vocation is with their convictions. And it's because it's kind of now or never. We're sort of at the brink of the environmental disaster that the world has never seen.
Well, one of the first things he did was take away protections for a lot of environmental land.
Exactly. And from the economic inequality to the sort of the racial injustice. These are very, very dangerous times, and history's not something that happens. History's something that you make, and if you stand on the sidelines of history, somebody else is going to make it, and I don't trust those sons of bitches.
Yeah, and
to use the president's term.
Well, to be exhausted is no excuse either, especially with this man right here. Yeah. To make it a reality in the world that we exist as musicians and artists in performance art, to make what we say and what we mean become a reality in front of someone's face who might be 14 and might not give a fuck about anything.
They got enough going on.
To make them like, oh, wow, okay. Very few situations get anointed to have that voice that can go across some generations. And it took the three of us bands from different eras, from another era, to come and be a beacon in 2018, 2019, 2020. Cool, yeah, that's OGs, they doing their thing, that's their lane, that's something for us to listen to. In fact, we ain't listening to too many of that, but we know that that's at least true to its core. And I think that's something that as us as artists have to be accountable for.
And you look at pop culture, we talked about this, I think it actually helped pave the way for a lot of this, because what wasn't acceptable became very quickly acceptable. I worked in Much Music in the era when we would host shows to explain misogyny in videos to kids. It was really important to us.
Yeah.
And then
because it's not obvious. I mean, I come from a place where it's not
obvious.
You just think that's just a video.
Right. So we just thought it was important. We didn't ban the video, but it's important to talk about this stuff. And then I remember going to Coachella a few years ago, and it was like, holy cow, every woman's being called a bitch from every artist non-stop. And you know, when I was 22, maybe I didn't know,
Right.
but I was like, I'm in my fucking 40s, I know better now. I can't wrap this around my head anymore. And I was like, why did it get to be okay? Because it was actually going in another direction. It was going in a direction where you couldn't do that.
Well, you have new people sweeping in and older people sweeping out. And this is why racism is always a thing to take on and wrestle, because it hangs around. And when you have people to interpret what it is and what it has done, and give its context in the way that affects people, then you know, you'll have young people like the 20-year-old guy in Charlottesville that adopted all these beliefs that's going to run over people in a protest rally. So it's something to take on and attack and to wrestle. Not to say that you're going to kill it and beat it, although that's a great utopian idea. But you shouldn't be afraid of it. You know, attack it.
And the good news is a lot of people aren't afraid of it. I mean, one of the things is this is a band that's not just, we're not starting from zero. We're reflecting the resistance of these times. You know, and this album is our demo tape to be the soundtrack for that resistance. You know, it's very inspiring how people are standing up to the Trump-Pence regime and to the kind of racism that we see across Western Europe as well.
Just, as artists, you know, making this record, were you wondering at all how it would be received and how the audiences would receive you?
Yeah, I haven't worried about that since 1992. It's like if you use that as a north star, your art will always suffer. And exactly. And throughout my, whether it's been records that have sold, millions or records that have sold thousands, I think you just got to follow the north star of your own creativity and weave your convictions into your music and let the chips fall where they may. We certainly did that with this record. So it's a record that I'm proud of. Every track on. Love playing these jams live. Excited to sort of take the mission of Prophets of Rage to stages around the world.
Yeah, well, I'm always the one that has to get their shoulder tapped and shaken up. Hey, Chuck, did you know that, the record company people or the management might say, hey, the record is number, and I'm like, oh. I'm trying to remember lyrics for the
So that's never been a thing you worried about?
Excuse
You've
me?
never really worried about that stuff in the past?
I only worry about making sure that I'm not the one that fucks up during the performance. That's the only thing. And Tom doesn't like to use the word supergroup, but all these guys are super individuals as players and also, as human beings. So the number one thing I got on my mind is like, I'm not going to be the
Don't
fuck
be the
up here.
problem.
Yeah, don't be the problem. That's the only thing I feel. Is like, don't be the problem.
And don't get me wrong. Of course, you want people to hear the record. We're doing this interview. I think it's important to, you use your time to promote a thing that you're very proud of. So that's an important part. It's not like we just sort of casually put whatever. What's that?
You believe
absolutely.
in the convictions, as you say.
Show-wise and also performance-wise and artist-wise, I take on the challenge, as everybody else is, to just maim the legend of yourself. You have to beat the legend of yourself's ass every time you go forward in the future.
That's a really big thing, isn't it?
Yeah, man. And it's not easy, but you got to take on yourself. So it's not really anything. You're really not going up against anything else other than yourself. But I have help.
You have no idea how much thought goes into that right there, because the legacies of these bands are looming. And when people have been to shows or people have seen the YouTube, and there's like and so my stated goal at every show is tonight's the best one. Tonight's the best one yet. And when you aim for that, it might be the best one, it might not be the best one, but aim for that at everyone. And certainly, I want some percentage of the crowd to say, this is the best fucking show I've ever seen in my life. Right. Like, if you aim for that, if you just go out there, some bands go out there and they rehearse the songs and they play them. That's not this. This is a competitive outfit. Like, it is sport. We're sporty. We're sporty.
He's an incredible skipper too.
Well,
he'll make look in the moment of chaos. Yeah. He'll make like, all right, we got this amount of time, so we gotta take out 2 of these songs, and this is the lineup change for the second half, and we meet that, and you find out at the end like, God damn, that Tom Morello.
I have like a Rain Man-like ability to do the set list, and it's a big part of it. I think it's a big part of it. Of course. It's sort of like knowing. It's the one thing I'm I can play some notes on the guitar that go in the right order sometime. But my main talent is to win with the players you have on the field.
Right. Oh, dude, just for you, I mean, even though you've been on the biggest stages and played in a pretty massive band, just as a human being to sit back and play and look up and there's Chuck D.
No, it's crazy. Yeah.
And Be Real.
Yeah, it's crazy.
As a fan.
It's crazy. It's crazy. And then when we're rocking a play, it's so trippy. Because
Yeah.
I was, in the band I was in before Rage Against the Machine. I remember sitting at a Waffle House somewhere, listening to Fear of a Black Planet on cassette, just, wishing I had enough change to call my girlfriend back in Burbank. Like with that cassette on repeat and going like, oh, I'm in a band with that dude.
Was that before or after you were an exotic dancer?
It was the same period.
Same period?
Same period. The same period. Might have been a little before.
You need to make more money then to make that phone call if you
Yeah,
had to.
it pays much better than rock and roll did back then.
Depression.
So, sometimes in music and also on stage, or whether we're doing the thing in the studio, you catch yourself for a moment and you hear the magic going on. And you're like, are you effing kidding me, man? It's like, what? And the thing that got me is like, they might, Tom, Tim, and Brad might go through a riff of a thing. Oh yeah, and they'll talk to each other, and they'll be in this little triangle.
Yeah.
With Brad and Tim and Tom, and they'll go, and I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? And then they'll be like, it doesn't sound right. And I'm like, I don't get it. What doesn't sound right?
What in that doesn't sound
What is,
right?
and then they'll go, oh, that's it. And I'm like,
okay.
I don't hear the difference,
Okay,
but that's dope too.
Yeah,
So I guess that one sounds right. The other one doesn't sound right.
Is that just
That's-
intrinsic because of the relationship?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I'm not sure the specific, but yeah, there's a lot of, the stuff that some of the sonic or nuanced details of riffs or grooves that may matter in that triangle probably wouldn't matter outside of that triangle.
As a dominant MC, what happens when it's Be Real and there's two dominant MCs? Because that can't be an easy, just logistic way to try to make it work.
Oh, well, I'm a sports fan. I looked at this as a science, when people thought this was a fad. And I knew once Tom called me and he said, Chuck, what do you think about Be Real? And I was like, yes. I understand how my role could be in this thing that we're trying to form. And I knew all the tools that Be Real has, his experience, his leadership, his tone, his ability to go across different tones, and his charismatic, presence. I said, wow, that could make my role as being something as a microphone A2 and him be A1, and present him in a strong enough areas where I know I back that up. Yes, there's areas that we do songs where I take the lead, he backs me up, but we make no bones about it. You can't have night and day at the same time. Something has to be boom, and something has to back that up. So it's an alpha, omega type of thing, and Be Real could carry that. And at his stage, his age, and at his willingness to take that, and then that made it easy for me. I mean, I'm second in interviews to Tom. There's an area where I could play stupid with you, George. And I'm like, sometimes I could be on my phone.
I won't let you
sleep.
I won't let you.
I drool on my shirt, and this man will take care of that. So I relish that, and I relish on the stage with beat commands, and on stage, it's really kind of simple. I mean, BMC's the crowd.
Yeah.
You have one MC, and you have the songs, but he MCs the crowd. I make short statements, and I back out of there. I've talked before.
Right. You're like, you're comfortable in this spot, in this stage.
Man, I feel like in sports, would it be a DH?
Yeah.
The DH role. You just come in and hit homers. Yeah.
Man, I don't even want to have to run the first.
Is that how you saw it?
I mean, not necessarily like that. I just thought that in order to make it fresh, it couldn't just be going on YouTube and finding someone to replace Zach.
Yeah.
That just didn't seem right. And we also, it was important to get Zach's blessing for the project too.
And you did that?
Yeah. Chuck
You did,
and B and Timmy will call me, and it's all good. And once we had those guys in the room, then it was figuring out how do you make that. Okay, here's the team. Like now we have to. It's not like we had a playbook. We had to write the playbook after we had the team and sort of figure out how to do it.
You make a phone call? Like, how'd you?
What, to Zach?
Yeah, like was
course.
that a nervous phone call for you?
No,
No?
not at all. I mean, yes, it was an undertaking to take it on, but also is understanding that these songs should never ever be dormant,
Yeah.
especially now. And
songs are more relevant now. They were written during the Bill Clinton era. You know
That's
what I mean?
right. That's what's so crazy, right?
And we're artists. We're not ball players, so there's no timeline on when it ends other than death.
Right.
So for Zach De La Rocha, for Flavor Flav, for Sin Dog, all their blessings were necessary. These groups are still live, and whenever they want to pop up and be it. But Prophets of Rage is its own different animal, and that's how we look at that.
Is it nice to have to be able to build a different identity?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's a while you know, every band I've been in has had some sort of, like, this is like everybody works in this band. You know what I mean? Like, everybody cares about every, you know, being at the interview and rocking the show hard and making sure the T-shirt is sensibly priced and fair trade. You know, like, it's a sort of a unified front on all these things. Where sometimes, you know, I've been in bands where every Spinal Tap disaster has happened that you could possibly imagine, and we don't waste time on that. We don't waste time on that. It's about the music. It's about making great music and making music that changes the world.
And not being the problem.
Not being the problem. Nobody in the band, really. Like, I got to tell you, there's. Like, nobody's the problem.
Nobody, because you have a bigger fight ahead of you.
Yeah, yeah.
What is the pathway to understanding among people, the divided people? Because not everybody's going to ever vote the same way, nor should they, because it's not democracy, then, right? But what are the bridges you build where you can explain what misogyny is and try to get past that and racism and classism?
I got two thoughts on that. One is that there's a unity in music that transcends politics, and there's no political litmus test to being in the pit for Prophets of Rage. And, you know, we certainly, with any of the bands I've been in, there are plenty of fans who disagree or don't care about the lyrical.
Paul Ryan likes Rage.
Yeah, exactly.
Has he ever heard it?
He's welcome in the pit. He may have heard it. He probably didn't listen to it. But
How many calls did you get when Paul Ryan said that?
Oh, I got one, and I immediately went to my computer and had to write a retort. I was like, that shall not stand.
So that's one thought, that music is unifying.
Yeah, that it is unifying in that way, and that once you're all in that pit together, you know, people may be drawn because of the powerful MCs or because of the aggression of the music or the guitar solos, and they're exposed to a different set of ideas than other bands have. Now, that may resonate with them or may not. I know it does resonate with people because every day when I go to the grocery store, they come up to me and they say that. So the other thing is, I don't know that unity is important. I think that justice is important.
That's it.
And I think that it's not. I don't want to unify with neo-Nazis. You know, it's one thing to, you know, sort of to reach out in a humanistic way, and people are not born ignorant, they're not born racist, but it's important to confront that shit and to not let it get a toehold in the world.
Right.
That's more important than, you know, kumbaya around the fire.
Absolutely.
And in this whole kind of, you know, kneeling with the flag debate that goes on, I think that it is, you know, Colin Kaepernick's a hero, not just because he sort of shares my views about the injustices of the criminal justice system, but because it has torn the scab off of racist America. Yeah. And you've now got to make a choice. Yeah. And if you didn't have to think about it before, every red state loves football, and you got to watch. You have to confront things you've never had to confront before.
Growing up a fan of the Washington football team, watching that fucking owner link arms, knowing he donated $1 million to Donald Trump, knowing that he's got a racist name of his football team. Yeah. I'm watching it thinking, linking arms isn't good enough. Yeah, you got to kneel.
Yeah. Because Trump liked the linking arms.
Yeah.
But it also brings up, like, race is defining cornerstone of the United States of America. Yeah. And it gets smudged over. Oh, we've had a black president, there's no more racism. Oh, there's no desegregated lunch counters, there's no more racism. Yeah. Guess what? Is the last, 48 hours have clearly demonstrated that the issue of race is a hot button.
How do you see it?
As human beings, we don't coexisting doesn't necessarily mean that you're up there just nestling with somebody like ooh. But it doesn't mean that we allow this overt disrespect either. You know, we should have this across the world respect for each other as human beings and this planet and all the species underneath it, and go about kind of like a civil humility and humanity on going about it. And that's just got to be just a ground rule, you know. I mean, and understand there's going to be struggles keeping that ground rule. And but we're here to remind people that's a core of a better place.
Would you guys go to the White House if you won a championship? in this. I was thinking
If we won a
Pittsburgh-
championship in
Yeah,
music,
Yeah. No, I was looking like
Your
the
Grammy will be presented.
That's right. The Pittsburgh Penguins are going to the White House.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The Steelers wouldn't come out of the locker room. And I'm
Yeah.
like, what an interesting choice an athlete has to make now.
Sure.
in a team. I mean, it should be obvious.
I mean, first of all, good for athletes, because for much of my music career, it has been deplorable, like how athletes have clearly been afraid of making any sort of political statement because it was going to hurt their checkbook. Like, let me tell you, people sometimes like, oh, they're capitalizing on liberal. I mean, you lose a lot of money when you when you do what we do.
Yeah.
Like, because you are alienating, vast
That's true.
potential sectors of music lovers, and we do it unapologetically because I couldn't sleep at night or look myself in the mirror.
Hip hop had happened big time, right? It depends on how you rap. Now, what do you talk about? It can
Yeah,
have a real
yeah,
impact.
and the Dixie Chicks are a perfect example in the world of country music where their career was ended because of one mild offhand statement. So I'm sorry, the original question was?
No, we were just talking about would you go to the White House?
you know what? My thing.
To paint it black.
I'm a Earthison, man. This is the entire planet means something to me. So if somebody's in the White House office that doesn't see that, I can't honor that. Not too long ago, a couple of years ago, I'm in Lebanon, and Syrian MCs are there, and everybody's there, from what you call the Middle Eastern countries as rappers. They have a point of view. Yeah. I mean, all of a sudden that doesn't count because it's over there. This over there talk has to cease. It's like over there means Mars and Venus and maybe some other place, whether you believe it's a flat Earth or not. But this over there thing has to cease because this is one planet.
There is no over there. It's just somewhere else.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as over there.
Yeah.
And so if there's somebody in the White House that basically thinks that, the world is his and his pockets, fueled by ego, you have to make a concise statement to say this person is wrong, and I can't honor that.
Yeah, I'd
for
skip
this
that
moment.
one.
Yeah.
Skip that.
Dude, hip hop coming out of the Middle East is pretty great.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, hip hop comes out of everywhere.
Everywhere,
now.
yeah.
Everywhere now.
Pretty
Everywhere,
fantastic.
yeah.
But it's this idea of what drives you, right? And what reaches, what is your truth?
Sure.
That's always been the case for you guys. Do you feel like you're finding it more in other places than you found it in your own communities from
Well,
when
you're
you started?
from Canada.
Yeah.
You come down and immediately got to go back to IQ rehab up north.
Well, because the good news is that I love America because I
You love the United States of America.
Yeah, I love the United States. Yeah.
People get super mad in South America when you call the United States of America America.
Well,
Canadian.
but I'm North
Yeah,
American,
North
so I feel
America,
we're all the
yeah.
same. We're all Americans, right?
Yeah,
Actually, we're not. We're
Mexicans
global.
too.
Yeah.
Of course,
Yeah,
of course.
You can say it, we're
of
Americans.
course.
Go on. Anyway, we
but it's this
digress.
idea that what is represented in the media isn't always what it is.
Yeah.
There is so much else going on in every place.
Sure.
That
Sure.
I like finding. And I also think this is the time to be in complicated places.
Mm-hmm.
Don't run from compromised neighborhoods. Don't run from places that are oppressed.
Mm-hmm.
We'd have found 12 titles and 12 topics for our album without this mess.
Yeah.
But it's the lowest hanging fruit under the waist.
Yeah.
So these are the 12 songs that represent the latest Prophets of Rage first debut album. So I mean,
Do you have other things ready to go for another Prophets of Rage record? Like,
for the next 15 years,
Yeah.
the world won't fix itself, George.
I feel you. What a pleasure. Thanks for coming.
Yeah,
on.
thanks very much, man.
Good to see you.
Yeah,
man.
sure.
Always a pleasure. Thank you. That's great. We'll get a couple
All right.
shots. Okay. It won't fix itself.
Nah, man.